If you are prone to worry or anxiety, you'll be very aware of what if thinking. What if? What if I fail? Or what if this doesn't work? What if I had done that differently? What if they get annoyed with me? What if I'm wrong? What if the worst case scenario happens? Generally speaking, those kinds of what if questions, they're not very helpful, especially when they pop up all the time in an overwhelming way. Some of us, we can know all too well about ending up in a what if rabbit hole of thought. But sometimes what if questions can be useful. And Psalm 124 is precisely a case in point. This is effectively David's what if psalm. What if the Lord had not been on our side, he asks. What if God hadn't stepped in to deliver us? What if God hadn't intervened? And David calls us to do the same here, to imagine, to speculate, to consider what if the Lord wasn't on our side. This next psalm in the Songs of Ascents series, it's all about the drastic difference it makes to have God on your side. The difference of having God on your side. Now, we know David, the psalmist, he experienced many dangers and difficulties in his lifetime. The people of Israel, they faced many troubles and trials too. But God was on their side. The Lord was on their side, and it made all the difference in the world to them. And it does make a difference, having God on your side. It will make a difference in your home. The Lord on your side. It will make a difference in a marriage. It will make a difference in your work. It will make a difference with your children. It will make a difference in all your relationships. Having God on your side. You could have many other people on your side, strong and able people, and still be ruined. Today's Father's Day. You could have the greatest father in all the world on your side, and yet you could still live in defeat and disaster. You could be well liked. You could have many, many friends, and you could still end up in hell. It's vital we have the Lord on our side. And so this morning from this psalm, we're going to join David in his thought experiment. We're going to firstly consider life without God on your side, and then we'll consider life with God on your side. So apologies to the boys and girls. I've put the headings the wrong way around in the little sheet this morning. So the first one is life without God on your side, and the second one, life with God. So the boys and girls, you can maybe just swap the 1 and 2 around to help you understand the points today. Just the 2 points, because there's no other side in this discussion. There's no other option. Either God is on your side or he's not on your side. Either the Lord is for you or he's against you. No neutral ground, no fence for him to sit on, no middle ground. And so immediately from the very outset, this psalm is pressing home to us the importance of having a saving relationship with the Almighty Lord of heaven and earth. The importance of finding your help in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. So the 2 points this morning. Firstly, life without God on your side. Verses 1 to 5. Life without God on your side. So the opening verses pose David's hypothetical scenario. He writes, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side. And he then invites a whole people to join in with him. We can almost picture this song being used on the journey. It's a song of ascent. It's a traveling song. We can almost imagine the worship leader, maybe even the presenter, saying the opening words of the psalm before calling on all the people to join with him. So if it had not been the Lord who was on our side, an individual voice, then he says, let Israel now say, all together now, join in with me. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side. So what if God wasn't on our side? Just imagine that for a moment. Imagine your life without God. Imagine you weren't a Christian. Imagine that God hadn't stepped in to deliver you and save you. What would your life be like? Well, the picture David describes is one of devastation. He makes 2 points really in these verses 2 through to 5. The first, we would be swallowed alive. We would be swallowed alive, verses 2 and 3. Verse 2 speaks of people rising up against us, the end of verse 2. And this wasn't a hypothetical thing for David. He says, when people rose up, this was an inevitable thing for David. And that was certainly true for him. It was certainly true for Israel as a collective people. They faced many, many opponents. And had the Lord not been on their side, had they been left to their own devices, had they been left to themselves, this is what would happen, David says. Verse 3. They would have swallowed us up alive when their anger was kindled against us. We would have been swallowed alive, he says. The picture is of their opponent being like a fierce, ravenous animal, devouring its prey just in one go, one swallow, swallowing it whole. Had God not been on our side, David says, we would have been devoured. We would have been absolutely destroyed. We would have been utterly decimated. And you know, the same is exactly true for you and for me. If you had to face the world by yourself, the world with all of its anger, with all of its danger, with all of its malice, if you had to face that without God, left utterly to yourself, you wouldn't be able to do it. Left to your own resources, your own efforts, your own ingenuity, you would be swallowed alive too. If you had to go to school by yourself, if you had to go to work by yourself, if you had to go into the world by yourself, without God on your side, you wouldn't be able to do it. We would be swallowed alive. David then goes on, he moves to another picture of devastation. We would be swept away. We would be swept away, verses 4 and 5. But what if God wasn't on our side? Verse 4. Then the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. 5. Over us would have gone the raging waters. So the image moves from an angry enemy to a raging river, a flash flood. Waters in the Scripture, particularly the Old Testament, often represented trouble. And the picture is of a sudden, life-changing, engulfing flood. And isn't it a perfect description of what trouble is like in your life? Isn't it a really helpful image of the life-changing, engulfing nature of trial? Like a flash flood, trials can come upon any of us out of nowhere, it seems, engulfing us, surrounding us, catching us up in them all together. And before you know it, you can feel pulled in, you can feel pulled down by the flash flood of trial, unable to get out of it. You feel that you're being swept away, unable to grasp hold of anything. And in an instant, very quickly, it can seem, maybe with one phone call, circumstances can change so quickly. And it can feel like you're drowning, in the words of this psalm. It can feel that you're in over your head. And the message of these verses is that if God isn't with you when that happens, if God isn't with you when the flash flood comes, you would be swept away. You would be in over your head. You couldn't cope with it. When grief strikes and you lose that loved one, if God isn't with you, you would drown in the sorrow of it. When the test results come in and the consultant offers no hope, if God isn't with you, you would be engulfed by that trial. You wouldn't make it yourself. I've lost count of how many times I've met with believers in trial and they've said something along these words: I just don't know what people would do in this situation if they didn't have the Lord. If they didn't have the Lord, I don't know how they would cope. I don't know what they would do. And the truth is, friends, they don't cope. They don't cope. When the flash flood comes, they get swallowed by it. They can't handle it. For sure, they might put on a good front. They might put on a brave face. But deep in the inside, they're suffocating. And they're drowning in it. And they're being swept away. And very possibly that's you this morning. To all appearances, you might seem okay to the rest of us, putting on a brave face. But on the inside, it's a very different picture, perhaps. And you would have to say you are without God today, and it feels like you're drowning. It feels like you're drowning. Do you not see your situation here? Jesus put it himself, John 15, verse 5. Apart from me, without me, you can do nothing. Nothing. Now that doesn't mean that without God you are incapable of anything. Out of God's sheer goodness to man, you're still able to work, you're still able to exercise, you're still able to do your meaningless daily tasks. But when there's trouble, when there's trial, you can't make it on your own. You would be devoured. You would be drowned. You would be swallowed alive. You'd be swept away. You need the Lord on your side. So, Christian, this psalm calls you to just to take a moment and to ask yourself, where would I be? Where would I be today without the Lord? What would my life possibly look like if he didn't help me, if he hadn't protected me, if he didn't save me? The psalm tells you, you would be swallowed alive. You would be swept away. Rather than having the Lord with you, he would be against you. Rather than living under the smile of a heavenly Father, you would be living under the wrath of a holy God. A life without God on your side. How dreadful that life. How pitiable. How awful. Life without God on your side. But then there's a second half to the psalm. Life with God on your side. Life with God on your side. Verses 6 to 8. And these verses, they paint a very, very different picture. David has imagined life without God. And he now moves from what might have happened to he moves to what actually has happened. Because wonderfully, the Lord has been on his side. delivering him, delivering the people of Israel again and again. Verses 6 and 7. Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Having been trapped, having been ensnared, having been caught like a bird in a net, David describes God mercifully stepping in, sovereignly, wonderfully saving him out of his situation. We have escaped, he says. We're like bird escaping out of the trap. And that's us, friends. That's us this morning if we're Christians. The grace of God has intervened, and this is our experience. We were in the net. Our souls were captured, if you like. But we've been set free. We're no longer under the power, under the domain of the evil one. We've escaped. And our soul, like a bird, if you will, can soar and can fly high and high. And we can say today with the psalm, blessed be the Lord, glory be to God. Because our escape is down to him, isn't it? The picture is so helpful here. Little birds can't get out of the net themselves. Little birds can't do much about a snare or a trap. Neither can our soul do anything to escape itself from the snare of evil. We need a liberator. We need a redeemer. We need a deliverer. Blessed be the Lord, David says. Verse 8, our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Maybe you're feeling trapped somehow this morning. Ensnared somehow in your sin, perhaps. Maybe a sinful habit. Trapped. Feeling utterly helpless to resist temptation. Stuck in some sort of situation. And you don't feel able to free yourself. You've tried. Oh, you've tried. And you're not able to break those bonds. But see, in this psalm, there is one who is able. And you need to hear this. If you are a slave to alcohol, you need to hear this. If you're a slave to pornography, if you're a slave to gambling, if you're a slave to grumbling, you need to hear this. God can deliver you. There is one who is able to deliver you. Whatever sin you feel ensnared in, those hands that were once nailed to a cross can set you free. Jesus, the great Redeemer. And no matter how powerful that snare is, how dangerous your trial is, he is able to deliver you from it. He's able to save to the uttermost all those who come to the Father through him. We're called in this psalm to imagine life without the Lord on our side. It's worth remembering Jesus doesn't have to imagine that. He experienced it. He experienced it. On the cross, it was as if he had been swallowed alive by the righteous anger of a holy God. On the cross, it was as if he was swept away by the flood of the Father's wrath. Also, we could be spared it. Also, we could be freed from that snare. So our help today is ultimately not in Alcoholics Anonymous. Our help ultimately is not in just trying harder. Our help is not in a set of New Year's resolutions. Our help is, in the words of the psalm, in the name of the Lord, the one who made heaven and earth, the greatest help you could ever think of. So when the world is seeking to swallow you up, when the trial is threatening to sweep you away, here is your help, Christian. Here is your help in the name of the Lord. In the name of the Lord, that is the person and work of Jesus Christ. Paul captures this when he writes Romans 10:13. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. You know how to call on someone, don't you? Boys and girls, you know how to call on someone. Maybe you're out for dinner in a restaurant. You call the waiter over. Or you call a friend on the telephone. In an emergency, you call 999. If you're drowning, you call out for help. Your car breaks down, you call someone to come and help you. When it's dinner time later on, there's a call for the family to come and eat, come to the table. It's very simple, you see. Don't think becoming a Christian is a difficult thing. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. I'm trapped, God. I'm stuck and I can't do anything about it myself. I need you to set me free from this. I need you to be on my side. And you know, once God is on your side, everything is different. Everything is different. If God is on your side, no power of hell can ever destroy you. The Gettys have put it well, no scheme of man can ever pluck you from his hand. Paul put it better. If God is for us, who can be against us? And so through Christ this morning, you're free. You're free. Christian, you are the bird set free from the snare. So live like it. Live like it. 1 Peter 2:16. Live as people who are free. You're not helpless when it comes to that temptation. The snare has been broken, Psalm 124 tells you. The trap has been smashed. 1 Corinthians 10. God will always provide the way of escape. He's on your side. Live like it. Live like it. This picture of a bird being freed from the snare, it's so helpful. It's so interesting. Think of what a bird does. Imagine what a bird would do when it's freed from a net, freed from a trap. What's going to happen to the lark when it's set free from its captivity? What's going to happen to the songbird when it's set free? It will sing, and it will sing, and it will sing and sing and sing. How glad it is to be free. Friends, we've been delivered from Satan and sin and death. We should let our voices loose this morning. Sing to him. Praise his name. You've escaped. Let the world hear your singing. In 1582, in Edinburgh, 1582, an imprisoned minister named John Dury was set free. He was released from prison. He was welcomed on the edge of the city by several hundred of his friends. And as they walked along, the number soon swelled to several thousand. High Street, walking along in Edinburgh. And someone began to sing this psalm, Psalm 124, to the tune we'll sing it to later, actually, the old 124th. And soon everyone began singing along, these thousands, in four-part harmony. You can only imagine. Walking along Edinburgh High Street, joining in the words of this well-known psalm. He had been set free. And one of the chief persecutors of the church in those days was said to have been more alarmed by this spectacle than anything else he had seen in Scotland. More alarmed by the singing of the free people of God. Do you see, our singing, it's part of our witness to the world. We want the enemies of the church to see and even hear that we've been set free. Because ultimately, we want them to experience this freedom too. We consider they the ones to be in captivity. We want them to be set free. We want our friends. We want our colleagues. We want our neighbours to be set free. We want our classmates. We want our family members to experience this freedom. Charles Spurgeon tells the story of a sailor who had been put in prison, and after his release, he was going over London Bridge, and he saw a man on the bridge selling birds. "What do you want for the lot?" the freed prisoner asked. And however much it was, he went and he found the money, and as soon as the birds were his, he opened the doors of the cage and let them all fly away. "What are you doing?" the man said who had been selling them. "What are you doing? What did you buy the birds for and just let them go?" "Oh," said the sailor, "if you had been in prison as I have been, you would be sure to set everything free you could get hold of." If you'd been in prison as I have been, you'd be sure to set everything free you could get hold of. Friends, shouldn't that be our heart's desire? That many men, women, young people around us here in Lisburn, across this province, this island, throughout this world, that they might taste this freedom too. That we might seek to set everyone free we can get hold of. We can't set them free, of course, but we can point them to the one who can. Jesus, the great liberator, who sets free every prisoner from sin, who calls on his name. Blessed be the Lord. With him on your side, it really does make all the difference in the world. Amen.